Jake Carter leaned back in the pilot's chair of his aging spacecraft, the Wayfarer, a retrofitted cargo hauler turned exploratory vessel. He had spent the last 3 years skirting the boundaries of human-mapped space, seeking adventure and solitude. The void of space was his sanctuary, free from the bureaucracy of Earth's United Space Command and the suffocating weight of his past mistakes. But this time, his curiosity had led him further than ever before, into uncharted regions beyond any human exploration logs. His ship's sensors beeped incessantly, dragging him out of his reverie. The screen displayed an anomaly, a massive object cloaked within a nebula of electromagnetic interference. Jake's pulse quickened. Cloaking technology this advanced was unheard of, even among Earth's cutting-edge systems. "Computer, run a diagnostic," Jake ordered. A few moments later, the ship's AI, a female voice with a no-nonsense tone, replied, "Scans indicate artificial structure. Probability of alien origin, 94%. Jake smirked. "Well, it's about time we found some company out here." He approached cautiously, keeping the ship's stealth systems engaged. As he closed in, the anomaly resolved into a massive station, its structure both alien and majestic. Towering spires and intricate patterns of light spiraled along its surface, exuding an eerie, almost organic presence. Jake felt a mix of awe and apprehension. He knew the risks of making first contact, but the allure of discovery overrode his caution. As he neared, a sudden surge of energy erupted from the station. Alarms blared. "Warning, gravitational lock detected. Unable to maneuver." What the dash? Jake gripped the controls, but the Wayfarer was being pulled toward the station by an invisible force. He tried to override the systems, but it was futile. The ship lurched as it was drawn into a glowing docking bay. When the engines powered down involuntarily, Jake muttered, "Guess we're making friends after all." The ship's hatch hissed open, revealing a group of tall, armored figures. Their silver exosuits gleamed under the docking bay's blue-tinted lights. The aliens had elongated features, their skin shimmering with a chameleon-like quality that shifted colors as they moved. They raised their weapons, sleek, pulsating devices that didn't look like anything Jake wanted to test. Hi," Jake said, raising his hands. "I come in peace?" One of the aliens stepped forward, speaking in a sharp, guttural language. Before Jake could respond, a device on its wrist projected a holographic translator. "Human, you will come with us." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Not much for small talk, huh?" The aliens didn't respond, instead motioning for him to move. Jake sighed and complied, his mind racing. They led him through a labyrinth of corridors, the walls glowing faintly with veins of light that pulsed rhythmically, as if the station itself were alive. Despite his predicament, Jake's scientific curiosity surged. Who built this place? And why? His questions were interrupted as they entered a vast chamber. At its center, encased in a translucent, shimmering energy field, was a figure unlike the others. Her appearance was striking, with iridescent skin that shifted between hues of violet and silver, and piercing, golden eyes that radiated both defiance and sorrow. Her ornate clothing hinted at royalty, or at least someone of significant importance. Jake's captors barked commands to each other, seemingly ignoring him for the moment. He glanced at the alien woman in the cell, who locked eyes with him. Despite their obvious differences, Jake could sense her desperation. She pressed her hands against the energy field and spoke, though her words were inaudible. Somehow, Jake understood her intent. She was pleading for help. Before Jake could act, a thunderous voice filled the chamber, accompanied by the arrival of an imposing alien clad in black armor. His towering frame and menacing presence exuded authority. The guard stiffened as he approached. "So, this is the human who wandered into my domain," the figure growled. His voice, translated through the same holographic device, was laced with contempt. Jake straightened his posture, masking his fear with bravado. "And you are?" I am General Zarek, ruler of this station and commander of the Zoltran Dominion. You are trespassing in forbidden space, human. Wasn't exactly intentional, Jake said, glancing at the captive woman. But I couldn't help noticing you've got someone locked up here. She doesn't look like she's here willingly. Zarek's eyes narrowed. Her fate is none of your concern. You are a curiosity, nothing more. Speak carefully, or you may not leave this place alive. Jake's instincts screamed at him to tread lightly, but his defiant streak took over. Listen, big guy, I don't know what your deal is, but holding someone against their will isn't exactly a good look. Zarek sneered. You presume to lecture me? You are in no position to bargain, human. He motioned to the guards. Take him to the holding cells. Perhaps some time in isolation will teach him his place. As Jake was dragged away, he cast one last look at the alien woman. Her golden eyes locked onto his, silently imploring him not to give up. As the chamber doors closed behind him, Jake made a promise to himself he would find a way to escape and he would not leave without her. The dim, metallic confines of the holding cell pressed in on Jake, his thoughts racing. He had been thrown into a small, barren chamber illuminated by a single, flickering light embedded in the ceiling. The hum of alien machinery vibrated faintly through the walls, a constant reminder of his imprisonment aboard the alien station. Sitting on the cold floor, Jake leaned his head back against the wall and closed his eyes, trying to piece together a plan. His curiosity about the station and its inhabitants had been replaced by a more pressing concern, the captive alien woman he'd seen. There was something about her gaze, something desperate and defiant that struck a chord deep within him. A sudden sound interrupted his thoughts. A faint buzz, almost like static, echoed through the room. Jake sat up, scanning his surroundings. The light above flickered again, and a shimmering, translucent figure materialized before him. It was the alien woman from the chamber. Startled, Jake stood. What the dash? Before he could finish, a soft, melodic voice filled the room. It wasn't coming from her mouth, but directly into his mind. Do not be alarmed, human. I am Princess Liera of Zaltrones. I am reaching out to you through a neural link. Jake blinked, his skepticism evident. Neural link? How wait, why are you talking to me? Liera's image flickered slightly. Our technology allows us to communicate across certain distances, even through barriers. I have reached out to you because I need your help. Jake crossed his arms, wary but intrigued. Help with what? Breaking you out of that fancy cell? Liera nodded, her golden eyes glowing faintly. Precisely. I am the rightful ruler of my people, but my uncle, General Zarek, has betrayed me. He seized control in a coup and has imprisoned me to solidify his rule. He intends to force me into a union with one of his loyalists, binding my bloodline to his tyranny forever. Jake let out a low whistle. That's some serious family drama. But why drag me into it? I'm just a guy who got sucked into your space station. Her gaze hardened, her tone resolute. Because you are the first outsider to find this station. Zarek fears humans. He believes your kind are meddlesome and will pose a threat to his plans. If he learns more about you, he will use it to his advantage. Jake frowned. What plans? Liera hesitated, her image flickering again. Zarek is amassing an army. His goal is to expand the Zoltran Dominion by conquering other worlds, your Earth included. Your planet's resources would make his forces unstoppable. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Earth? You're saying this guy is planning an invasion? Yes. That is why I must escape. With your help, I can rally the loyalists still fighting against him on Zaltrones. Together, we can stop his expansion before it's too late. Jake rubbed the back of his neck, processing her words. On one hand, this was far beyond anything he'd bargained for. On the other, walking away wasn't an option, not with Earth at stake. All right, Jake said finally. Let's say I believe you. How exactly am I supposed to get you out of here? I'm locked up too, remember? Liara's expression softened, her tone almost pleading. I can guide you. Zarek underestimates your resourcefulness, as he does with all who oppose him. This station's technology may be advanced, but its systems are not infallible. With my knowledge of its layout and your ingenuity, we can escape together. Jake paced the small cell, mulling over her words. If I help you, what's in it for me? Liara tilted her head, clearly puzzled. Is saving your people from annihilation not enough? Jake smirked. Fair point. Guess I'm in. Her holographic image flickered again, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Thank you, Jake Carter. You are braver than you realize. Before Jake could respond, the faint hum of approaching footsteps reached his ears. He looked toward the sealed door of his cell. Company's coming. Liara's voice grew urgent. Listen carefully. On the wall behind you is a hidden access panel. Use it to escape into the maintenance tunnels. I will guide you from there. Jake turned to the wall she indicated. Sure enough, a faint outline of a panel was visible, blending almost seamlessly with the metal. He pressed against it, and it slid open with a quiet hiss, revealing a narrow tunnel filled with twisting conduits and glowing wires. Convenient, Jake muttered, crawling inside just as the cell door opened behind him. He heard the alien guards muttering to each other, their guttural voices growing louder. Holding his breath, Jake moved deeper into the tunnel. As he crawled through the tight space, Liara's voice returned in his mind. You must move quickly. The station's central control room is not far from your position. From there, you can disable the power grid for my cell. Jake grunted as he squeezed past a particularly tight section of the tunnel. Sure, no problem. I'll just hack into an alien control room with technology one don't understand. I will guide you, Liara assured him. The station systems are complex, but I can provide the codes and pathways you'll need. Trust me. Jake smirked despite himself. I don't have much of a choice, do I? No, Liara said, her tone almost amused. But I promise, you will not regret it. As Jake crawled onward, his resolve solidified. He didn't know how he had gotten himself into this mess, but one thing was clear, if what Liara said was true, the stakes were far higher than just his own survival. This wasn't just about him anymore. The narrow maintenance tunnels stretched endlessly, a maze of twisting conduits and pulsating lights that painted Jake in shifting shades of red, blue, and green. Liara's voice in his mind was the only thing keeping him oriented. Take the next left, then descend the ladder. The central control room is 3 levels below you. Easy for you to say, Jake muttered as he crouched to avoid a low-hanging pipe. His knees ached from crawling, and the confined space made him feel like a rat in a trap. You're not the one stuck in a glorified air duct. Complaining won't help us escape faster, Liara quipped, her voice tinged with dry amusement. Jake smirked despite himself. You've got a sense of humor. Good to know. The ladder she mentioned came into view, a rickety structure bolted to the tunnel's side. Jake descended cautiously, his boots clanging against the metal rungs. The dim glow from below revealed a larger chamber at the base. He dropped down silently, crouching behind a stack of strange, crystalline containers. The control room loomed ahead, a vast, circular space filled with alien consoles that blinked and pulsed like living organisms. The air buzzed with an electric hum, and holographic displays floated above the consoles, showing alien glyphs Jake couldn't begin to decipher. At the center of the room, a group of armored guards stood at attention, their imposing figures casting long shadows in the dim light. Great, Jake whispered. Now what? Liara's voice was calm but firm. The console directly ahead of you controls the station's security grid. You must disable it to release my cell's energy field. Jake peered around the containers. And how do you suggest I do that without getting vaporized by the welcoming committee? There is a blind spot in their patrol pattern. Watch the guard nearest to you. When he turns away, you'll have a 7-second window to reach the console. Jake sucked in a breath, his heart pounding. 7 seconds? No pressure. You can do this, Jake. He waited, watching the guard's movements closely. When the alien turned, Jake bolted, his footsteps barely making a sound against the smooth floor. He slid behind the console just as the guard turned back, holding his breath. Liera's voice guided him again. Place your hand on the panel to the right. It will scan you, but do not be alarmed. I am overriding the system remotely. Jake hesitated, then placed his hand on the glowing panel. The surface was warm, and a series of alien symbols flashed across the hologram. A soft chime confirmed the scan, and the console's interface shifted to a simpler layout, presumably modified by Liera. Good. Now, enter these coordinates, 12x43y18. Jake quickly typed in the numbers, the alien symbols shifting to match. Done. Now what? Pull the lever to your left. That will disable the energy field and temporarily shut down the station's power grid. Jake found the lever and gave it a hard tug. A deep rumble echoed through the station as the lights flickered and dimmed. Alarms blared, their shrill tones cutting through the air. I think they noticed, Jake said, ducking as the guards began shouting and scrambling toward the consoles. Run, Jake. Take the tunnel to your right. He didn't need to be told twice. Jake sprinted toward the indicated tunnel, his pulse hammering in his ears. The guards were hot on his heels, their guttural shouts growing louder. Blaster fire sizzled past him, scorching the walls and filling the air with the acrid smell of burning metal. He dove into the tunnel and slid down an inclined ramp, narrowly avoiding another barrage of shots. The incline ended abruptly, and Jake tumbled into a larger chamber where Liera's cell stood, its energy field now flickering erratically. Liera! Jake shouted, skidding to a stop in front of her. Your ride's here. The princess stepped forward, her elegant movements belying the urgency of the moment. The field finally dissolved, and she stepped out, her golden eyes glowing with determination. Thank you, Jake, she said, her voice no longer confined to his mind. We must move quickly. The chamber doors burst open, revealing more guards. Jake grabbed Liera's hand and pulled her toward the exit on the far side. I hope you've got a plan. I do, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. My ship is docked in the lower hangar. We must reach it before Zarek realizes what we're doing. The duo raced through the station, navigating twisting corridors with Liera's guidance. The sound of pursuit never waned, and Jake could feel the adrenaline coursing through him. They burst into the hangar, where a sleek, organic-looking ship awaited them. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, and it seemed to pulse faintly as if alive. Is that thing breathing? Jake asked, his voice tinged with awe. It is bioengineered, Liera said, leading him up the ramp. Now, get in. The ship's interior was surprisingly spacious, with consoles that lit up as they entered. Liera moved to the pilot's seat, her hands gliding over the controls with practiced ease. The hangar doors began to close as guards flooded in, firing relentlessly. Hold on! Liera shouted as the ship roared to life. The vessel shot forward, narrowly squeezing through the closing doors. Outside, the starry expanse of space stretched endlessly, but their escape was far from over. Alarms blared within the ship as a fleet of alien fighters launched from the station, hot on their trail. Jake strapped into a seat, gripping the armrests as Liera executed a series of evasive maneuvers. I hope this thing has weapons. It does, Liera said, flipping a switch. But I need you to man the rear turret. Quickly. Jake unstrapped and scrambled to the back of the ship, where a small turret console awaited. He gripped the controls and fired at the pursuing fighters, his shots lighting up the void. One by one, the enemy ships exploded, but more kept coming. "Any ideas, Princess?" Jake called out as another volley of fire rocked their ship. Liara's voice was calm but firm. "I'm calculating a jump to hyperspace. Keep them off us for a few more seconds." Jake gritted his teeth, taking out another fighter as the ship shook violently. Just as the swarm seemed overwhelming, a sudden surge of energy enveloped their vessel. Stars blurred into streaks of light as they jumped to hyperspace, leaving their pursuers far behind. Jake slumped back in his seat, his breathing heavy. That was way too close. Liara turned to him, her expression a mix of relief and gratitude. "You did well, Jake. But this is only the beginning." Jake met her gaze and nodded. "Yeah. I figured." The stars outside the ship's viewport were no longer streaks of light but steady, pinprick beacons of calm in the dark expanse of space. The bioengineered vessel hummed softly as it glided through the void, its systems adjusting from the strain of their hyperspace jump. Jake leaned back in his seat, still catching his breath from their harrowing escape. Liara stood at the ship's central console, her hands gliding over the holographic controls. Her face was serene but determined, her golden eyes scanning readouts as she calculated their next steps. "Where are we headed?" Jake asked, breaking the silence. "To a hidden outpost of the Zoltran resistance," Liara replied. "It's a safe haven, far from Zareg's reach for now. My people have been fighting in the shadows, but they lack the strength to take back our homeworld. With your help, we may change that." Jake raised an eyebrow. "My help? I'm just one guy, and last I checked, I'm not exactly an intergalactic freedom fighter." Liara turned to face him, her expression resolute. "You've already proven yourself resourceful, Jake. The Resistance needs allies like you. More importantly, Earth must be prepared for Zareg's plans. He will not stop until every system in the galaxy bends to his will." Jake sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. He was a scientist, an explorer, not a soldier. But he couldn't ignore the stakes. Earth was in the crosshairs, and if what Liara said was true, Zareg's forces would be unstoppable unless they acted now. "All right," he said, standing up. "Let's meet your people." The outpost was located on a barren moon shrouded in thick clouds of gas, its surface hidden from Zareg's long-range sensors. As they descended, Jake caught sight of a sprawling network of underground structures, their entrances cleverly camouflaged amidst the rocky terrain. Inside, the atmosphere was tense but alive with purpose. Zoltran rebels moved through the halls, their movements swift and efficient. Many of them paused to bow as Liara passed, their expressions filled with a mixture of hope and reverence. In the command chamber, a holographic map of Zareg's domain dominated the room, its glowing lines charting occupied territories and resistance strongholds. A grizzled Zoltran warrior, his silver skin scarred from countless battles, stepped forward to greet them. "Princess Liara," he said, his voice deep and reverent. "We feared the worst when you were taken." "Thank you, Commander Visor," Liara said, her tone regal yet warm. "I owe my freedom to this human, Jake Carter. He has risked much to help me escape." Visor regarded Jake with cautious respect. "A human aiding our cause? That is unexpected." "Yeah, well, Zareg's plans kind of involve my home planet, so I figured I'd take it personally," Jake said, crossing his arms. "What's the situation here?" Visor gestured to the holographic map. "Zareg's forces control the core systems of our empire. His fleet is vast, and his factories churn out warships at an alarming rate. The Resistance has managed to disrupt some of his supply lines, but we lack the numbers and firepower to strike a decisive blow." Liara stepped closer to the map. "We must act quickly. Zareg will soon learn of my escape, and his retaliation will be swift. We need allies Earth's United Space Command and any other civilizations willing to stand against him." Jake nodded. Earth's military might be skeptical, but if we show them the evidence of Zarek's plans, they'll listen. We've faced threats before, but nothing on this scale. They'll need time to prepare. Visor frowned. Time is a luxury we do not have. Liara's expression hardened. Then we must force Zarek's hand. If we can cripple one of his primary fleet yards, it will slow his invasion plans and give us the window we need. Jake raised an eyebrow. You're talking about a preemptive strike? That's bold. It's necessary, Liara said firmly. With the fleet yard disabled, Zarek will focus his efforts on defense rather than expansion. It will buy us time to rally more allies. The plan came together quickly. Jake worked alongside the Zoltran engineers to integrate human cloaking technology into the resistance ships, ensuring they could approach Zarek's fleet yard undetected. The mission would be dangerous: a small strike team infiltrating the station to plant charges while the resistance fleet provided cover. When the time came, Jake found himself aboard one of the Resistance's sleek fighters, its cockpit cramped but brimming with advanced technology. Liara sat beside him, piloting the craft with calm precision. Remind me why I agreed to this again? Jake asked, gripping the controls nervously. Because you're braver than you think, Liara replied, a faint smile tugging at her lips. As they exited hyperspace, the fleet yard came into view, a colossal structure orbiting a gas giant, its surface bristling with weapons and docking bays. Zarek's warships patrolled the perimeter, their angular forms cutting through the void like blades. Steady, Liara said as the cloaked fighter weaved through the defenses. We must reach the core without detection. The infiltration team landed on a maintenance deck, their movements swift and silent. Jake's heart pounded as he followed Liara through the station's labyrinthine corridors. They planted charges at critical points, each step bringing them closer to discovery. The alarm sounded just as they reached the final target. Guards poured into the corridor, their weapons blazing. Jake ducked behind cover, firing back with a Zoltran blaster. So much for the stealth approach. Liara disabled the final security lock, planting the last charge with deft hands. It's done. We must reach the ship now. The escape was a blur of gunfire and narrow escapes, the station shaking as the charges detonated in a cascade of explosions. The fleet yard's destruction lit up the void, a brilliant burst of light visible even from the Resistance's outpost. Back at the outpost, the mood was triumphant but tempered with urgency. The Resistance had dealt Zarek a significant blow, but the war was far from over. Liara stood before her people, her voice resolute. Today, we have shown Zarek that we will not cower before him. We will rally allies, strike where he is weakest, and reclaim our freedom. Together, we will prevail. As cheers erupted around them, Jake stood at her side, a reluctant hero but one now fully committed to the cause. Guess I'm in this for the long haul, he said. Liara turned to him, her golden eyes filled with gratitude. You've already proven that humanity is a worthy ally. Together, we will ensure that Zarek's tyranny ends not just for Zaltronis, but for the entire galaxy. The fight was only beginning, but for the first time, Jake felt hope that even in the vast darkness of space, unity and courage could light the way forward.